just want to introduce myself. I'm Ashley Baker. I work for the Utah Parents Center, and I will be facilitating this session. I'm really excited to have 3 panelists here today. And I first want to let you know I'm going to be launching a poll here. We just kind of want to know who is here today, just some demographics about yourself. So if you wouldn't mind going through and just filling that out as you are coming in. Take you just a couple of minutes to fill that out. And while you're doing that, I'm going to introduce our members today for our speakers. First, we'll start with Jared Lisenby. He earned a PhD in human development with an emphasis in early childhood education from Auburn University. He taught in higher education for over 10 years, where his research focus was children's physiological stress in preschool classrooms. Jared worked in Head Start as an education coach and a data analysis before joining the Utah State Board of Education as a preschool education specialist. Jared lives with his family and their pets in Salt Lake City, where he enjoys the year-round opportunities for outdoor recreation. So Jared, if you would wave, let us know where you're at. There he is. Okay. Then we've got Samantha Segal. She grew up in Mount Pleasant, Utah, where she replaced one of her first grade teachers in her first teaching position. She taught in rural, urban, and charter environments for 10 years until completing her master's degree and joining the Special Education Services team at the Utah State Board of Education in 2020. Providing a different perspective with her general education background, she has found a passion for promoting inclusion in Utah schools and loves her new position as elementary inclusion specialist on the Special Education Inclusion team. She lives in Bountiful with her partner, Thomas, and their kiddos, Clea and Killer. Okay, Samantha, wave for us. And then we have, last but not least, Susie Estrada. She currently lives in Salt Lake City, Utah, and works as a family and community engagement specialist at the Utah State Board of Education. Previously, Susie has worked as a program director, coordinator, and preschool teacher. Susie first moved to Utah in 2014 from North Hollywood, California. Susie graduated from California State University of Northridge with a bachelor's degree in child and adolescent development with a minor in psychology and child care administration. Additionally, Susie has a master's in education, culture, and society, as well as a master's in public administration from the University of Utah. Wow, we've got quite some amazing people here today. So I'm going to close out this poll here. Hopefully everybody had an opportunity to fill that out. And I'm going to announce at 20 minutes before the end of the session to let our speakers know. But they have opted to, if you guys have a question going forward in the presentation, feel free to chime into the chat and we'll pull those up as we go. Okay, let's take the time to put your presentation up, Jared.
Let me go ahead and unmute. Okay, thank you, Ashley.
Yes.
Okay.
Can everybody see this? Hopefully everybody can see this okay.
And if you can't, or if you can't hear that, we've got a couple of videos, please let us know and we will work to fix the problem. We're excited to share this presentation with you. As Ashley mentioned, we are from the Utah State Board of Education. We're part of a team that is helping to fulfill the strategic plan for the Utah State Board of Education of really focusing on early learning, basically what families can do with their young children from birth through the time that they enter the school system to help them, grow, learn, develop in the most effective ways possible so they have that foundation for lifelong learning and lifelong success. So the title of our presentation today is Engaging Your Child in Early Development. And as Ashley already introduced us, we probably won't reintroduce ourselves, but you will have access. We'll make sure that we can send out the slides from this presentation so you can have our email addresses. Please feel free to contact us with any questions or concerns or comments that you have, and we will be glad to work with you to help address those. So just wanted to start with a little bit of an overview. As our team is focused on working with families to help support this early learning, we're part of a larger collaborative throughout the community that includes United Way, KSL, Help Me Grow Utah, a variety of other programs that really have taken on this task of supporting early learning. Since I'm sharing my screen, I can't easily put it in the chat. When I get a chat, I will pop the link to the 5B45 website. It's basically 5b45kids.com that links to this collaborative and links to resources and information about what families can do to support early learning that you can access. And also it's available in both English and Spanish. So the big focuses that we have are with 5B45 Collaborative are really on 5 broad areas, with the understanding that learning does not start when the child enters school, because families are critical. Parents really are children's first and most important teachers, and we want to do whatever we can to help reinforce that and help families and parents in this work. The 5 areas that go into 5B45 are developing positive relationships, basically the idea of love. That's really foundational. If a child is loved and cared for and nurtured, they have a very strong likelihood for later success. Also focusing on talk, and I put talk and read together because as we're learning from research more and more, it's that language development that happens very early on with this talking and with that support really leads to the ability of a child to read effectively once they get into the early school system. Also focus on math and scientific thinking, building understanding of the physical world, and that falls into the category of count. And finally, because play is how children learn, a focus on helping children explore, create, and problem solve through play to have this foundation. So that kind of sets up a little bit about what we're going to be talking about here. And I'm going to have to pull this over because we weren't able to really connect this. I'm going to play a little video here, and I want you all to watch and notice. This is a very short video. It's about 10 seconds. I want you to watch and notice what's going on with this little interaction with this father and, I would guess, probably a 2.5 or 3-month-old baby. And fingers crossed that you can hear this and it all works. So.
I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you.
Okay.
I love
Oops.
you.
We're about to see it again.
I love you.
Oh. Okay, now I can't get it to start. Hopefully you heard that, and hopefully
We're
I can
also
find where that's
appreciating
playing.
all your open tabs, Jared. If you don't have 20,000 open tabs,
And now I can't find where it is. Okay. All right.
I love you.
Okay. I was so worried that it would not work. And now it won't stop. I can't see where it is.
It's here now.
There we go.
Okay. If you want to mute Jared, we can go to the next one and I'll take over.
Okay, sounds good. I'll do that and I'll figure out how to stop it.
Loving can heal.
Well, I'm so glad that our technology works. I hope that that has woken everyone up, because we would like some interaction from you all. So, Jared, do you want to finish up your slide?
Sure. Now that it somehow stopped when I stopped sharing. Okay. Yeah, I would love to have people come off mute or put in the chat just some of the things that you noticed there. What's going on? I mean, this is a really young baby, probably 2.5 or 3 months old. What did you notice? And yes, please do feel free to come off mute. Tell me what you saw. What was happening there? Oh.
We have someone in the chat there. Brianne says early turn taking.
Thanks, Brianne. Yeah, it was back and forth. It was the parent and the child were vocalizing, and this is like a really tiny baby, back and forth. Good. What else did you notice?
I see with the relationship piece, I like how the dad is kind of stroking the baby's back and they've got, belly to belly, they're laying on each other, or the baby's laying on dad. So it's
That
kind of
physical
building that
closeness.
relationship.
And yeah, that, I don't know about you, but my take on that baby was loving it. It's like, oh, I have my dad. I have this uninterrupted time. Oh, and yeah, Jackie put in, the baby was mimicking the father. Wait a minute. Okay, this kind of blows my brain little bit. Okay, this is like, this baby was like inside the womb just like a couple of months before this. And now it's out in the world and it's taking turns back and forth with vocalizing. And even the vocalizations that it does, it was a similar pattern and similar pitch and sound to what the father was doing. Yeah, it's mimicking. That's pretty high quality brain development that's going on. That baby is processing, it's planning, it's taking in information, responding with information. This is pretty amazing. It's mind blowing that this much learning is happening right at the very beginning. Great observation. What else? What else did you notice?
So in the chat, people have put in mimicking that sound.
Yeah, it's so amazing that all of this is happening very young. One of the things we really want to communicate is that learning happens even before birth. But yes, as soon as you can talk with the child, as soon as you can interact with the child, hold, snuggle, all of those things, that is building brains, and that's what's really helping that child to develop that foundation. So I'm going to tag team over to Susie here to talk about this slide here.
So like Jared mentioned, from conception and even before then, if you are a very rigid type of person that is in the planning process and wants to have a baby, you're changing your diet. You might even start listening to different music. There are a lot of things that happen even before conception. But we're going to focus in a little bit on the impact of talking with your baby. So like the video that you just saw, if you want to come off mute again or put in chat, just thinking about what impact do you think talking with your young child has on their long-term development. So talking with your child doesn't have to be highly structured. It's just a conversation at the grocery store, talking to your baby, as we saw, day-to-day interactions. What do you think are the long-term impacts?
Increased vocabulary, like earlier talkers, earlier readers.
Thank you. Yes. The more that you talk to your baby, and then also the more vocabulary that you use, the higher vocabulary that they're going to use or have access to as children. Jared, do you remember the exact amount of difference between words depending on reading books? Go ahead.
Oh, as far as like, yeah, I don't know the exact number there. I know that there's a huge difference in the number of words that a child hears, based on a variety of factors such as parents, income, education, also, exposure to a lot of the other adults, whether it's extended family, older siblings. And really this extending the vocabulary is really critical once the child gets into the ages where they're starting to read, because, I don't know if any of you remember or if you have seen young children learning how to read, but it is dang hard because the English language really doesn't make much sense. And if you have a wide vocabulary that you can draw on as you're trying to make sense of these words, and some of the letter sounds but not others, having that vocabulary really gives a big boost in that understanding. So yes, thanks for identifying the building vocabulary. Yeah, what else? What else is the talking with a child early helping to accomplish in the long term?
Attachment, definitely. So looking at communication styles, children are modeling our behavior. If anyone has been on social media, gentle parenting is something that's really big right now across socials, as far as different ways to convey messages to your children and the way that they are then practicing self-regulation. So how they're going to manage their emotions, how they're going to express their emotions, how they're going to manage conflict. All of that can come as a lesson of the way that you're speaking with your child, even as a baby. So when we're thinking of attachment specifically, it's how quickly are we responding to their needs? How are we responding to their needs? And how that affects children long-term is through that attachment style. It's going to impact the way that they make friends, the way that they develop relationships, and then just overall the way that they view the world and the way that they work through those different problems and problem solving. Jackie put in the chat that it also works on joint attention and concentration. So something that when I was a preschool director, something that I really looked for in interactions in the classroom with my teachers was I really wanted to see feedback loops. So feedback loops are just the back and forth exchanges between two people, in this case, between the parent and the child. So how long we're sustaining that conversation, are we able to extend their thinking? So instead of them just saying there's a bug and us repeating back, oh yes, there's a bug, it's, oh, there is a bug. What color is the bug? I wonder, what does the bug eat? So you're just keeping that conversation going for as long as possible until they're officially squirrel, they're gone. But the longer that you can engage them, you're building that concentration, you're expanding their focus, and you're also developing some key skills for them as far as their cognitive development.
And yes, those executive functioning skills are critical or foundationally critical to learning both literacy and numeracy, which is part of the reason why I keep calling them the new early learning standards, and they were approved in 2020, which I guess is a few years ago now. But in the early learning standards, there's a content area called lifelong learning practices, which includes things like being able to focus attention or being able to assess similarities and differences. You know, some of these things that really are built with these conversations that adults have with children that really, once again, lay the foundation for lifelong learning.
Does anyone have anything else before we move on to the next slide? So one of the strategies that we have at the Utah State Board of Education, it's based on our strategic plan. That means that as a state, as a Utah State Board of Education, we are prioritizing a number of things that deal with education, student development, healthy communities. And that is strategy 1D is one component of it. So increasing engagement of families with young children in early learning experiences. So what this means is we're doing events like this, whether it's virtual or in person, presenting or just attending community events. In the picture that you see below, we're attending a community event in Glendale and passing out materials on kindergarten readiness, inclusion. We're also passing out materials for school, for kids to take to school. So notebooks, crayons, pencils. And we're really trying to make sure that we're, you know, not just in an office at the state, but that we're out and we're listening to you and addressing your needs and really getting a good feel of what it is that you all want. So that is, we want to make sure that you all know that this is part of our priorities. It's part of our strategic plan. We have a team here that's here with you today, but it's also part of something much bigger. So from superintendents to our chief of staff, a number of people that are really dedicated to making sure that all of our kids 0 and on are receiving all the support that they can. The videos have been put together by Jared. Jared's a man of many talents. And so I'll let him speak to the video just a bit.
Okay, and I will once again show you all my tabs. This is, earlier today I had at least 4 sets of tabs that have this many. That's just kind of how my brain works. And yeah, like we found out earlier, there's always like one that's playing music and I just can't find where it is. But yes, we did a series of short video clips that we released last year to really kind of reinforce this idea that what parents or adults are doing with young children make a difference. And I think I'll just really briefly show one. This is an example of a child learning to subitize, which basically is, you know, look at numbers and instead of counting, you process it, you know, going back to that information processing idea with executive functioning, to reach the number without having to count. And so I'll just, hopefully it will work. We'll see.
Ice cream? Yummy. Carrots. Yeah, how many? 2, that's right. There's 2 carrots there.
For more information about
So there's a lot going on in just that little bit of interaction too. I would love to, for people to come off mute again and, just talk about some of the things that they saw with this little video clip relating to what parents can do to support young children's learning here in this situation. What did you notice?
Christine said, I love how he acted out licking the ice cream. And I was thinking that as well, like that role, that playing with the learning was a lot of fun.
And that mental connection, he's remembering, it's like, oh, ice cream is yummy. You lick it, so I'm going to act out that deferred imitation. The other video, we won't watch it, but the other video is, all about deferred imitation. Hopefully when you get the links, you'll be able to access it. But yes, that deferred imitation, we're acting out something that he's seen or experienced before. Good. One thing that was really kind of interesting here, did you notice the parent didn't ask him how many there are? He was like, oh, he recognized there's more than one and started counting. Yeah, Brianne said he was trying to count on his hands, even came to the right number. Yeah, that's going back to, I know it's like, whoa, this kid, yeah. Yeah, he was, and first, okay, he counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the parent with that interaction, going back to that interaction piece, help focus. It's like how many, and he reported 2. Yes, great example of reinforcement and tailored feedback. Yeah, so exciting. There's so many great things happening here. Yeah, so if there's anything else, you can either come off mute or put it in the chat, and we'd love to hear it. But with that, I will move this back over.
And this can start really early. So from modeling, again, my niece, when she was a baby, I carry my purse a very specific way, apparently. And she had her toy bag. And so she's modeling that behavior. She was walking and doing all the things that apparently I do. I don't know if I was flattered, but it was funny. But something else that was shared with me from a parent is how early they've been working on numbers with their child. So their child is 2 now and can count to 30. And the way that they were doing this was they're very invested in like the microwave. So every time that they would heat up food, they would watch the numbers. And even if it was just the parents counting out loud, pointing out the numbers, it's a daily activity, but they're engaging them in that. So again, just doing that in your daily routines, when you're walking, maybe counting things along the way. But all of that is reinforcing. So again, their child is 2 and they can count to 30.
And that's a really good point too, because young children, well, with older children, sometimes we try to compartmentalize learning, which really learning at any point I feel should be integrated. Young children especially don't compartmentalize very well. Sometimes we forget that. So we say, oh, let's come practice your math. Here, let's count to 20. And it's not connected with anything like, counting down for the microwave or how many, cars they see going by, anything that's real to them. And it doesn't work as well. But if it's something that happens, just normally and just naturally, children will connect. And if you point out, it's like, wow, you counted to 30. It's like, wow, I did. And it's amazing. I wasn't going to show this other one, but then we were talking about imitation. Yeah, I'll make it fast because I know, I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for the entire discussion here. But really quickly here, this child is writing a letter and does this really interesting thing. She puts the pen in her mouth. Yeah, talk about copying things that you've seen. I have another video of this child who has picks up a cell phone and tries to swipe it and then puts it up in the child is pre-verbal, so doesn't really have any language that you can hear, but you can just see that the child is copying what they see. So the power of example is very, very powerful. So let's talk a little bit about strategies that you can use to support your child's learning in the very early years. One of the big things, and we've touched on it already, so we won't spend too much time here, but one of the biggest, most critical things that parents can do with young children is to talk with the child a lot. Building those foundational early language skills through those interactions, beginning, in the very beginning with what we saw with the previous video clip with turn taking and vocalization, asking and answering questions, pointing out things that you notice. Did you notice that this apple is a different color than this apple? This one's red and this one's green. Those types of things where you're labeling, those are critical for that foundational development. The next thing is really building relationships. And relationships are built in the moments, in those conversations, when you're asking and answering, and when you're pointing out or like discovering what the child has noticed. I love, being out on the playground and the child's noticed the puddle of water is evaporating and they're like all excited about something's changed. It's like, oh, let's be here, let's explore. Those types of interactions are critical. And, that's another example. This final bullet here is following children's lead. The previous little video example of the child counting the carrots on the magnet. The parent here didn't say, hey, let's count how many carrots are here. The child noticed that there was more than one, and so the child counted. The parent followed the child's lead by saying, oh, this child's interested in doing this. And so she was able to support and provide that feedback and provide that extension to help deepen that learning and that knowledge. So yeah, watching what your children are doing, listening to what they say, interpreting what they say, trying to understand what they're meaning, asking, expanding, all of those things are critical in the foundation. We do have some supports listed here on this slide. And once again, you'll have access to this slide deck. We mentioned before the 5B45 Kids website. Part of the 5B45 Kids partnership is Vroom, which is a learning app developed by the Bezos Foundation it's an app that you can download that has activities that you can do, just fun little activities through the day, things that you can do when you go shopping, things you can do when you're getting ready for dinner, things you can do when you're getting ready for bed, to encourage the child to develop those language skills, the numeracy skills, the lifelong learning practices skills that we're talking about before. A couple of other resources that are very beneficial for parents and for caregivers and teachers. The UAN preschool path has the link to the early learning standards, as well as a link to strategies and activities to help support learning in each of the content areas. So I mentioned before, lifelong learning practices is one of the content area. There's a document on the preschool path webpage that has ideas and recommendations that parents and other adults can do to help the child develop the skills of attention focusing, storing and retrieving information, creativity, all of those things that are foundational to learning. And finally, I put in the PBS Kids Utah. Children are exposed to a lot of screen time and a lot of video and media. PBS Kids goes beyond that. PBS Kids does have links to those children's programs, but they also have a lot of supplemental learning types of things that parents and teachers and other adults can use to help support children's learning in the very early years. So switch over and pass this over to Susie to talk about resources to support children and families.
So our main goal, well, one of our goals with putting this presentation together and wanting to be here with you all today is to make sure that we are not just throwing information at you, but that you're able to walk away with some tools and some resources that you can then go to in the future. So we've compiled this list. So as previously mentioned, the 5B45 website has some great activities and different things that you can utilize. We also wanted to point out the STEM Action Center. So they have science-focused, math-focused activities, but I want you, as you're exploring the website, to really look at the section that says Milo. So you should see a moose, and these are games that you can actually purchase or request. And they have a variety of different ages and different experiences that you can pull from. So one of the games, for example, is a game where there's different fruits and then there's a crow. They spin this dice. And so the game can be played with a 2-year-old, for example. The parent said that sometimes it's a struggle. You have to pull the game out a few times before the child orients themselves to how the game is played and that you're not throwing the pieces, for example. But it really is a lot of fun. So they're doing one-to-one counting, they're turn taking, you can do sorting, identifying colors. So different things like that from just a board game. And they've put a lot of thought into compiling that list for you. Utah Parent Center, you're all here, so you're familiar. But again, just a lot of great advocacy work. If you need a liaison for connecting with resources, that's an option as well. Really just a plethora of resources, as you all probably already know. And then if you're looking for support, if you have, a young child or any child, if you're looking for support with an after school or summer program, there are free options. If you're in South Salt Lake, Promise South Salt Lake, for example, has 13 different sites that you can take your child to for free. Some are community-based and some are school-based. But there are so many in the area that are just waiting for your kids. And then they do a lot of great work, y'all. So please tap into those after school and those summer programs. They want you there, they want your kids there, and they do provide a great resource, especially if you're working multiple jobs and you need extended care after those school hours. It's a great prevention for your teens as well, helping to keep them in a supervised, safe, healthy environment. And then if you're looking for access to preschools, we've included a hyperlink for you. It's just a list of free preschools. You definitely, should explore and see what options are out there, because preschool really does set up your kids for success. It helps build those early skills that are going to get them ready for kinder being a determining, or one of the biggest factors that helps to determine long-term positive academic outcomes. That's a fancy way of saying the better they do in preschool, the better they do in kinder, and then the better they do for the rest of their lives in academics. Then if you're looking for financial supports for early learning, there are high school readiness programs, which I'll let Jared talk about a bit more, but these are special grants that the state participates in with preschools through DWS. And so these programs have specific standards that they need to meet. They're improving their quality, but then that also is great for you, not only because your children are going to receive these quality services, but because you also don't have to pay for them. These programs are free. Jared, is there anything that I missed for that?
No, that's pretty much. This is, the high quality school readiness grant programs are the state funded preschool programs. They are, it's a mixed delivery model. There's both public programs and private programs that, if they meet the high quality standards, apply for funding to provide free services for children who are English language learners or low income, meaning they qualify for free or reduced lunch, and they need to have at least one other risk factor, but there's a whole list of risk factors. As was mentioned, these programs have to meet a high level of quality, and students who go through these programs, I just recently looked at the data, are performing substantially higher than the general population of kindergarten students on the kindergarten entry assessment. So it's exciting to see. We have very limited funding with it, so we don't have that many students that we're able to serve, but we're hoping that that can change in the future. But yes, if parents live in an area that has a grantee, this is a great way to access free preschool services for their children.
Additionally, if there is a program, they're not a part of this, they're not a part of Head Start, there's a fee, you can see if this program would qualify for a child care subsidy. So what that means is that through DWS, you can apply for a stipend or just like a monthly payment that the state would pay the preschool so that your child can attend that private program. Sometimes they only cover part of the payment, sometimes they cover all of it. There's no harm in applying and trying to see what you qualify for, especially if you have found a preschool in your area that is quality. It works best for your kid. Maybe it's close to your commute to work or to your other children's school. There's no harm in trying to see what you qualify for. And then there's also our Head Start programs. Jared and I have both worked in Head Start. It's a great program. And again, there's just a lot of different options for you. There's infant programs, there's preschool, and then just other resources as well. If you need help with paying utilities or finding employment, there's different opportunities there for you to find support. The next two bullet points, So with parent support groups and apps, I've heard that being a parent can be lonely. Especially if you do stay at home, it can be extra lonely because I mean, I was there for COVID. I got stir crazy after a month. And I don't have human children, I only have animals. So kudos to all of you that are raising human children because that is amazing to me. So there are different applications. And then there's parent support groups, make friends, socialize. I am the first in my family to go to college. And so here is where I have found people that can understand that experience. For some of you all, you need to find parents that can understand your experience and that you can sometimes just vent to. I believe that venting can be healthy and helpful. Ashley, I see your hand.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I don't want to interrupt your thought.
No, you're fine.
It's a question about preschool. So maybe after you, and I can ask when you're done with that, or I can ask now, whatever is best.
You can ask now. Go ahead.
I am so sorry. I was trying to find the hand raise option. It took me a minute.
Oh, it's okay.
Sorry. So just a moment ago, you were talking about the preschool grants.
Mhm.
And I just had a quick question on that. So you guys had shared the link about the free preschools, and I just want to make sure I understand correctly. The grant system through DWS, if I understand correctly, those grants are they could be for private preschools that the families choose, or is that like I'm just trying to understand, like, because you said like, oh, if it's convenient or if there's like a high quality preschool that you would want your child to attend, that's what that program is for. I just want to make sure I understand that correctly.
Yes. So the high quality school readiness program does, is available for high quality private programs to apply and then receive funding that they can use that funding to provide free preschool slots for children that qualify. If you want to, and yeah, as I mentioned, it's kind of underfunded. We can't meet the demand that we have for the program around the state. We're hoping to receive more funding in the future. But if you're interested in finding out what programs, if there is a program in your area that does participate, please feel free to reach out to me.
Okay.
Send me an email and I will be glad to look into that for you.
Okay, I really appreciate that because we're just getting ready to go into preschool, and my daughter would be, I believe, would be Carson Smith, but this is separate than that.
Yeah, so reach out to me and I'll see if I can see what I can find.
Thank you.
So,
okay, thank you. I'm so sorry to interrupt. Okay.
Oh, no
you're
problem.
Really
Thanks.
fine. And just I think I also want to make sure that it's clear. So there's the high quality school readiness programs is one, but then the childcare subsidy is two. So it's two separate things. The childcare subsidy is something that you can apply for and see if it could apply for a preschool outside of this grant funded program. So it's
and also, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Also, the list of free preschools that we have here, this is separate from the high quality school readiness programs. A lot of those could be preschool cooperatives, where parents get together and say, okay, we'll each take a turn, being the teacher and provide that opportunity or that option. Some are grant supported. So they're not associated with USBE and we can't vouch for their quality, but it is a resource that parents can use if they don't have for example, if they don't have a high quality preschool program in their area, or if there's another way. Yes, those are some options there. So just wanted to make that clear that the free preschools are separate from the high quality school readiness programs, which are free for families who qualify. But yeah, it's two separate lists.
Okay, thank you. I'm still kind of wrapping my head around it, and I really appreciate you letting me reach out to you because I do have more like specific questions for my child with disability. So there's like this is like a very new experience going into preschool, and so I'm really getting a lot, so I don't want to like get too derailed, but I will reach out, and thank you for taking the time to explain. I really appreciate it.
Please do. Yes, please email me.
And that actually takes us to the next. Oh, go ahead, Ashley.
Okay, well, these hyperlinks have lists for them to be able to look for places in their area.
Yeah, so those links should take you directly either to a list or somewhere to apply. Head Start, you also can look up the different locations. But that actually takes us to the last bullet point. We've just hyperlinked here, IDEA. Basically just the more that you know, the more that you can better advocate for your child. So we won't go over it because it is extensive. We've had a whole conference dedicated to it. But just reading it, knowing what your rights are, and then always knowing that you can always ask all the questions. You have rights as parents, especially in Utah. We are very big on parental rights. So please ask all the questions and you'll have our contact information as well.
Just letting you know we've hit the 19-minute marker, and everybody stay here with us. We will be doing a great prize at the end as well.
And next slide.
Awesome. So we've already discussed quite a few developmental milestones, which are skills that your child does at a certain point. A big one is like when your child takes their first steps. So this image on the screen shows one of the very many either PDFs. They also have an app that you can go to through CDC. And it shows examples of social emotional milestones, language communication, movement, physical development, and cognitive milestones. And these are updated. We won't, since we only have 19 minutes left, I don't think we will go to the actual sites, but in the top, the updated developmental milestones are there. And I can throw those in the chat in just a minute as well. And then there has been an update. There's been a little bit of conflict or controversy rather, that the perception was that the CDC lowered their standards, or that the impacts were due to COVID, but it's been in the work for a long time, and a lot of really good updates, like removing redundant milestones from different age groups, as well as specifying different dates, so like 15 months and 30 months, so breaking them down a little bit further. Let's see, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you. So in discussing with your pediatrician the developmental milestones, you're able to download the PDF or link to the app on the CDC's website. But some considerations for the developmental milestones, cultural influences. Some behaviors are valued in different cultures, like independence, or another example might be avoiding eye contact. So kind of taking in those cultural considerations so that you are not assuming that there's a developmental issue when it could just be a cultural one. So just because they're exhibiting a certain behavior doesn't necessarily mean it's a disability. And some delays can be nurture related. So a child that isn't having an opportunity to do a lot of speaking and maybe communicating more with grunts or physical signals could be more of a nurture related thing rather than developmental. Early identification can have long lasting effects, just like Susie said before, the impacts, they do better in preschool, they do better in kindergarten, they do better in their entire academic career. So again, there's the CDC's webpage for more information on screenings. So once you've discussed with your doctor, here are some resources. For Utah particularly, it's called Baby Watch. And do we have time to jump to that page? Who's sharing? Jason, can you? Here we go.
There we go.
So what I thought was really cool, we started with a page that was more nationwide, broke it down into Utah. And so for Utah, it's called Baby Watch. And if you scroll down a little bit, Jared, thank you. You can see there's phone numbers, there's updated profiles from 2021, and it breaks down every county and shows who you can contact. And then if you want to go back to the presentation, our special education preschool page
Oops.
is linked as well for USBE. And then there's special education services for preschoolers with disabilities, and then the Children's Center. I'm not as familiar with the Children's Center. Susie, did you?
Yeah, so the Children's Center, the way that we've used it with children that I've had in my program. So if you know a child that's been exposed to maybe some adverse childhood experiences, so some trauma, one of my students, for example, had been exposed to a lot of domestic violence from before birth and then after birth. So they had some behaviors that as a school, we needed a lot of support to help manage. Eventually, they were able to connect with the Children's Center, and the Children's Center eventually became their preschool program. But they also, through that program, were able to access some therapeutic services, some quality behavior management. Not that we weren't trying, but they are really specialized in working with some of those higher behavior needs. So the Children's Center, if you know someone again that has had some of these experiences and that their child might need some of these resources, they are a great program to connect with. And if they feel like there's someone even better, they just have a lot of networks and resources that they can connect you with. So again, the Children's Center really helping with some of those situations where a school might be trying, but especially as we know, preschool, if it's privately funded, they might not have access to all the training, just like your K through 12 setting would.
I think Ashley, you could probably chime in there about the Children's Center too a little bit if you'd like.
Yeah, we utilize the Children's Center with their families a lot as a resource, and I believe it's up to age 7. It's been a while since I've looked into the age, but they have a lot of behavioral supports for kids. They can also do, I think, behavioral assessments there. So keep them in mind. We can definitely tell you a little bit more about them.
Yeah, and I really quickly, it also the impact that we saw before and after on this kid was just night and day. So again, just high quality behavior supports that they might not be able to get in a different setting.
Perfect, thank you. So defining inclusion for Utah students with disabilities, this went into law in the Utah special education rules, and it was passed as ensuring each student with disabilities is valued as a visible member of the school community with equal opportunities to contribute by creating conditions for active, meaningful participation to the maximum extent possible and appropriate in the least restrictive environment. You'll notice the 4 elements are supports and services, peers, system, and access. As Susie said before, we've been all over the state doing an inclusion conference, and we're now in the parent conference session. In fact, they are doing some presentations in American Fork. So I threw into the chat if you guys are interested. Oh, Ashley, sorry, the previous slide. Did you have a question, Ashley?
Sorry, I was while we were still on this, I just was hoping someone could put those links in the chat that are on the post-diagnosis page. I did get the link to the current one, sorry.
Okay,
So,
no worries, we can throw those in too. And then we also have we have the presentation saved as a PDF with all of the links as well.
Perfect, thank you so much.
So the other dates for the conference, the registration, sorry, I thought I had the page open. I just closed it. When I pasted it, I cut it instead of copying.
you're fine. We have 10 minutes, so
Awesome.
just
So
5 minutes at the end. Thank you.
yeah, so they're in American Fork High School tonight, but tomorrow there will be one for Salt Lake City at Granite Park Junior High. They go from 5:30 to 8. And it is for parents on the Portrait of Meaningful Inclusion. We don't have the full Portrait of Meaningful Inclusion out yet on the website. It's in its last round of review and review and revisions, but it should be coming out very soon. So please link with it. Oh, and there is also one at Davis for Davis and Layton High School for September 19th. Registration's free. They will have refreshments and really dive into, there are some sessions that dive into inclusion and meaningful inclusion, myths versus facts. And then there's also a really good session on the Portrait of Meaningful Inclusion framework, and it's designed to help support inclusion for students with disabilities across the continuum of placements. So really good information for both you as parents as well as in the schools.
And then family engagement in your school. So again, you all are the parents, and especially in the state, you have rights everywhere you go, but especially in Utah, parent rights are the biggest deal. So knowing what they are is going to be step one. So if you go to the parent conference, you'll be able to learn more about what that entails. You'll be able to ask questions. We have a lot of great people at USBE, but Leah Voorhees is our assistant superintendent, and she is phenomenal and just a great person to connect with. So I'm promoting that you go, if for nothing else, just to meet her, because she really is awesome. But just remembering that you are your child's first teacher, whether you know that you're teaching them or you're just living your life. They're watching, they're learning vocabulary, mannerisms, self-regulation, thought process, problem solving, all of the things. They're picking it up there, and they're picking it up from you. And then you are your child's best advocate. So the more that you know, the better that they'll be. Empowering yourself with knowledge really is going to go a long way. So ask those questions. Don't be afraid. I know that's easier said than done, especially in some settings. But again, you have your rights, and you have your rights as parents to make sure that your child is being taken care of and educated, and that they're safe. So ask those questions, dive into the discomfort, and just know that no one's going to be perfect throughout the way, from your teachers to you to whoever. We're all doing the best that we can, but you definitely can demand better. And then make friends. Again, being a parent can be lonely, is what I've heard, and it is all time consuming. So talk to people when you're at programs, when you're at the park, connect with folks, and live your best life. Being a parent is hard. COVID was hard, and now we're all here trying to figure out this new world together. So make friends. You have our contact information. Don't be afraid to reach out. We're all pretty goofy, if you haven't figured it out already. So hopefully we've removed some of the scariness of the state. We're here really just to support you.
Okay, thanks, Susie. And I know that we're almost out of time. I know there's a survey and there's something about prizes too, but I want to make sure that if there are any final questions or comments, I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to ask. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for the work that you're doing. But yes, if you have questions or comments, please feel free. And otherwise, oh, thanks, Jackie. Otherwise, I'll pass it back to Ashley to wind things up.
Yeah, thank you. On behalf of the Family Links Committee, I want to thank these amazing presenters for bringing this informative information to us. And we will be sure to send out all the links to you all and their presentation, so you have that at your fingertips. I am so thankful you guys were here today. And as you know, we have other sessions every night that are still open for registration. And then we have our Wheeler Farm event on Friday. So I hope to see some faces there. Come up and say hi to me. I'm going to be at the Cotton Candy. So look for me if you want to say hi.